So this is Project Scirocket. It's a 1982 Volkswagen Scirocco. We picked the car up under the impression that it pretty well needed brakes and a rear beam. We got a new rear beam here. It came out of a cabriolet, one of those convertible Volkswagen things you see outside of bookstores and artesian cheese shops. When we actually got the car in the garage and started working on it, it wouldn't idle right. We fixed that, not that big of a deal. Now it won't idle when it's warmed up. We think it's the plunger on the CIS fuel injection system. For anyone not familiar, is a mechanical fuel injection system. There's an air line coming up there that goes into this metal box here. Something happens with a plunger and some magic and some 80s German engineering. Air gets metered in and goes in the manifold. Fuel goes down these braided steel lines into the injectors in the back of the head, which make the magic happen, I guess. I'm not really sure. It's over my head. But apart from that, the dash caught fire. You can see the aftermath here. We've sketchily wired a switch in to make the instrument lights work so we can actually see the cluster at night. Not that it matters because the cluster is sitting up here. We got to pick up some shrink wrap and everything else today to make that not so sketchy. Right now it's threaded together and that's not how you do it. The HVAC controls don't work at all. We've connected 2 of the lines again. We're not sure about the rest. We freed the shifter up. That works best kind now. The seats are all brand new, so that's a bonus. They're lime green, and that's not so much a bonus. The other big issue we run into, and it wouldn't be a project car without this, is rust. Oh, you can see that, or hear me, but the quarter-sized hole in the fender wound up becoming a fist-sized hole that extends into the car where the water drain was for the door jamb. So any water would come down here and drain somewhere, or maybe it's along the hatch, I'm not really sure. All I know is it pulled up in there, and we actually got extremely lucky because the rear beam mounts right in there, and the rust is right next to it. So we thought that the reason this car was destroying tires was because the rear beam was actually rotted out, causing some play, but it's not. The plate is best kind. You can actually see in here, they've made you a nice little hole. You'll never be able to see down there in this camera, but in that nice little hole you can see down to the top, and it's fine. So we've got a trusty 120 volt Mastercraft welder we haven't had a chance to use yet. That should hobble it together. This whole build is balling on a budget, to say the least. Dash is out. Right now we're trying to figure out why the indicator lights won't work. All the switches and everything are fine, but looks like the flasher relay might be gone. Let's get a better look here. Some body work on the door, just as a time killer at this point. This all works fine. Down here, you got these brilliant 1980s fuses. They're like a piece of wire wrapped in ceramic, and most of them are shot. And lucky for me, after a long search, Canadian Tire actually carries them. That's a basic rundown. We picked this car for a number of reasons, mostly because it's 1,700 pounds, give or take. Now it only makes 74 horsepower, but at 1,700 pounds, we don't really need to add a lot of power to make something somewhat respectable. We're hoping to autocross the car, maybe make it out to the 8th mile a couple times. At the rate things are going, I don't think we'll be anywhere this summer, but it's a start. We figure if we can make 150 to the front wheels with some sort of Volkswagen ABA 2-liter swap, we'll probably have a respectably fast car for what it is. It's not going to be no ground-shattering, you know, single-digit monster, but it'll do the trick. And apart from that, it's hard to find. You don't see a lot of these Sciroccos. Like, they're old school. They got the one wiper, which is pretty much makes it a McLaren. as far as I'm concerned. It's got this like Ferrari styling. I mean, if you showed this to the average individual, yeah, it could be a Testarossa, no problem. We're going to try to keep it updated, try to make some videos of just the common stuff. Like, I know I've ran into trouble trying to find a good video of how to replace the rear beam. The rear beam is a little bit of a tangly endeavor. So I'm going to try to make a good video of that. And just the brakes, because there's a lot of little things on this car that you don't see anymore. And these old Volkswagens are a real attractive project because it doesn't take a big lot to make them run. Doesn't take a big lot to swap them. I mean, this looks like a mess, but when we sat down and traced the wires out, 90% of that is for the stereo, and this car is much too race car for a stereo, so we're not going to have that. We're just going to tuck it up under the dash somewhere. The only other issue we found is right down in behind that manifold. There's some rust on whatever this panel is here. That's the blower motor. This is some sort of rain tray. We think the firewall extends all the ways out, and this rain tray just kind of comes along. So we're thinking that's a little bit of surface rust behind that manifold on the firewall. We're probably going to pull the motor and fix it. I mean, pulling this motor isn't that difficult. Take that with a grain of salt because I have no idea what I'm talking about. So we hope you guys enjoy it. We're going to keep updating, and when we first started the Newfoundland Motorsports Facebook page, someone told us it would be dead before it even starts, but they greatly misunderstood our ignorance. If we're the only one watching these videos because we've made them, that's good enough for us. So they'll keep coming regardless of how many people actually care.